Well, the global regulatory standard on bank capital adequacy and stress testing, Basel III, was introduced about 3 years ago. This after the global banking crisis of 2008, and that resulted in a liquidity squeeze. Basel III compels banks all over the world, that's to institute higher liquidity levels. The International Banking Conference is currently underway in Sandton. Our reporter Mashudu Masutu asked Renee van Wyk, Registrar of the Banks at the Reserve Bank, about the impact of Basel III on South Africa's banks.
Stable funding ratio, that is a problem for us as a country, not because we want to contract out of the risk, but because I think the risk is fundamentally different. But there is a period of engagement that we will go through, and we will see what comes from that. So I don't see Basel III having a major impact on the economy as we stand right now.
What effect will this have on investment returns?
Well, obviously with higher levels of capital, that's worldwide, returns on equity will reduce. But our banks already sit at 14.5% capital adequacy. So it's the level of gearing that sits within the capital that may be affected. But people ask me what's the effect of Basel III, and what I fail to understand why people don't also ask, what are the implications if we don't implement Basel III?
So what would be the implications?
Well, let's think about it. We want to compete on the international market. We want to compete with the international banks. We want to get our long-term funding, our bonds, etc., placed internationally. We want foreign investors to invest in our banks. What benchmark are they going to use? They're going to use Basel III. You already see some of the major banks in the world, UBS, I think HSBC, BNP Paribas, stating that they will be Basel III compliant. And they're doing it in the face of what's happening in Europe and elsewhere. And they're going out with a statement to say, we're strong, so come do business with us.
Indeed.
So yes, there are some implications if we don't. And don't forget, Basel III was born out of the financial crisis.
Why are South African banks in such a good position? What did we do right?
Well, I think because of our balance sheet size and not playing in the toxic market with the debt that caused it, the crisis in America, our access to dollar funding was quite expensive. And so it was a scarce resource. So it had to be applied very carefully. And the quantum of dollars that we could get access to was limited. So I think that is one of the key things, that our business is focused mainly on South Africa and doing their business here. And that, I think, was a very good, played a major part in us not being caught up in the international financial crisis.
What are your views on unsecured lending? Some are saying that it's not a problem, and others are saying that we should be keeping a close eye on it.
Look, I think the growth rate in unsecured lending has to be looked at very carefully. If it continues unchecked, well, then certainly one will have to start asking some questions. But at the current level of unsecured lending within our banks, it makes up a very small percentage of their total lending assets and their capital. So based on that, we're not concerned about financial stability in the banking sector. We think they're well capitalized, and should it turn out to be not a successful strategy, and therefore bad debts, etc., they're strong enough to ride it. But clearly, the continued growth at these high percentages is something that we will have to monitor closely.
The global economy is slowing down. What do you make of the growth coming out of the banking industry in light of all of this?
Well, I think the banking sector is doing quite well. If you look at the results, there's still enough energy within the South African market. But needless to say, if the world economy is continuing its slow trend, it's going to spill over to us, and we will see that effect coming through. But then our banks are well capitalized, so they are well positioned to weather that storm.